SCOBBER and Dr. KUREHA are brother and sister. Possibly, maybe, I don't know. I sometimes struggle to remember what has happened in the series, let alone trying to predict what is going to happen. Even though I did actually make a whole video doing that, but so far as I can remember, nothing on that video has actually come true yet. But when it comes to One Piece, anything is possible. And if recent events are anything to go by, then sudden familial revelations are certainly not out of the question. Now, before I get into the meat of this video, I do want to make it clear that this is not my own personal theory. This is a theory that I have seen floating around, I've seen become wildly popular ever since the introduction of SCOBBER on Elbaph. It possibly existed before then, but certainly after seeing SCOBBER in the modern day, it has become very, very prevalent. But I couldn't quite find a video just breaking down and explaining what the theory is, why it exists, and what it means for the future of One Piece, so I thought I might take it upon myself to bear that burden. Now, the thinking behind this theory boils down to three main points, those being their appearances, their axes, and their access to knowledge about a certain will of D. First off, let's talk about their appearances, and there's not so much to say here rather than show. I mean, just look at the two of them side by side. The similarities, I think, are pretty clear. They both have the same general facial structure, the same sort of pointy nose, even down to the same highly fashionable Dr. Eggman sunglasses. Now, just to touch on age for a second, SCOBBER is in his mid-70s, and Dr. KUREHA, as we all know, is a very youthful 141. If we assume GABAN is 75, the most mid-70s that someone in their mid-70s can be, then that gives them an age gap of 66 years, which is a significant age gap for siblings, although not out of the question, given Charlotte Perospero is 50 and Charlotte Anana is 8, giving them an age gap of 42, which is not as big, but it is also quite significant. Even with that addendum though, the fact that they have 66 years between them does also mean we can consider that Dr. KUREHA is SCOBBER's mother, rather than them being brother and sister. That is, at this point, an equal possibility. However, the exact minutiae of how they are related isn't as significant for the purposes of this video, it's more the point just that they are. In addition, all of that age talk is assuming that there is no time dilation shenaniganry going on Elbaph, which is another very popular theory, although unconfirmed at the time of this recording. But if it does transpire that that's the case, then that could mean that SCOBBER is aging at a slower rate than we think, and that would place him and KUREHA more in possible sibling territory. But either way, mother and son, brother and sister, the point is they bloody look the same. And that's really the main attraction to this theory. However, there is further fuel added to the fire by the fact that SCOBBER's weapon of choice is two big ol' axes. And would you look at that? What does KUREHA use when she is chasing Chopper out of the castle? It's not axes. I sometimes struggle to remember what has happened in the series. Alright, I confess I forgot this scene a little bit. KUREHA does not use axes in this scene, she uses projectile knives. And I will hold my hands up, that does sort of undercut the entire point that I'm making here. I will try and argue it's still a projectile blade weapon. It's similar to an axe. You can see where I got my wires crossed. So, look, I hold my hands up, I got it wrong, on with the rest of the video. It's projectile knives. Ones with which I might add, she has impeccable aim. I have no doubt that if KUREHA in this scene was actually trying to harm Chopper, she would have him. She would have him, no question. So, you know, they're both axe users. Maybe if they're brother and sister, they both grew up and they both had the same, like, axe instructor, like a mentor who trained them in the ways of the axe. Or if mother and son, maybe KUREHA was already a very, very strong and skilled axe woman and she taught SCOBBER her skills. But just the fact that they are both axe wielders is it's not the most significant branch, but it is definitely a piece of the puzzle. One piece of the puzzle, you might say. And of course, the third piece of this puzzle that builds this theory, which is a three-piece jigsaw puzzle, which I'm sure exists, you can probably get one of those, is Dr. KUREHA's knowledge of the D. And every joke I could possibly make about that has already been made, so instead enjoy this clip from the faculty.
I worked hard for that D. That was my D. I deserved that D.
Underrated movie, by the way, really good. Young Elijah Wood, pre-Lord of the Rings. Anyway, after the Straw Hats depart from Drum Island, Dr. KUREHA sees Luffy's bounty poster for the first time and notes his middle initial. Upon seeing this, she comments on Gold D. Roger, which is significant, not only because Dr. KUREHA knows Roger's real name, but also because this is the first time we, the audience, hear it said this way, rather than Gold Roger, as the world at large knows him. Now, KUREHA was obviously around during Roger's era, so this chance she just could have known him from his reputation before he became the Pirate King, before the world government rebranded him as Gold Roger. But then KUREHA also comments on the Will of D, which is a much more closely guarded secret. The overall effect is a pretty strong implication that KUREHA knew Roger personally, or at the very least knew people who knew him. Perhaps a certain relative of hers. And in general, it seems that she knows a lot more about the world history than she tends to let on. This scene at the end of Drum Island, it also somewhat mirrors the ending of Reverse Mountain, where after the Straw Hats leave Crocus and Laboon, Crocus also looks on wistfully and thinks about Roger, wondering if Luffy is the man that Roger has been waiting for. Worth noting about Crocus, of course, he actually was a Roger pirate, so of course he knew Roger personally, and he was the ship's doctor no less, which is curious as that is also the occupation of KUREHA. There is a connection there. Perhaps it's possible that at one point KUREHA was actually considering joining the Roger Pirates as their doctor, but Crocus had already taken the position, and so she left to do other things, or maybe she was like on the ship for a while as an honorary crew member, such as Vivi or Pedro, or anyone else you might consider an honorary Straw Hat. So, you know, maybe that was a thing. Maybe KUREHA tried to join, but the position of doctor was taken, and she didn't really have another role that she could fulfill. But SCOBBER GABAN was with her as either her brother or her son, and she conceded to letting him go with the Roger Pirates and go off an adventure while she stayed behind. Framing it that way does make me think lean more towards the mother and son kind of dynamic, because it's sort of like a mother sending her son off on the first day of school or something, although I feel like travelling with the Roger Pirates is a lot more intense than the first day at school. I mean, I suppose it depends which school you go to, really. Up here in the north, you know. It's a cruel, dark place, is the north of England. Cruel and dark indeed. Oh, also, if KUREHA was Scopper's mum, and then she sent Scopper to go away to join the Roger Pirates, that would also be like a mirroring of when she says goodbye to Chopper, and it would be like the origin of why she doesn't like tearful goodbyes. Maybe she had a tearful goodbye with Scopper that time, or maybe she also like chased him with axes until he got on the ship. Who's to say? So actually, that does flip the dial over to like mother and son territory. But as I said before, the exact relationship isn't so much the focus as the fact that they were related at all. So that is the why. That's the why of the theory, why the theory exists, what all the various pieces of evidence are. Admittedly, circumstantial evidence. There's a lot of like parallels and similarities and connections within all of that, although there is nothing that concretely points to it being canon at the time of this recording. The harder question to answer is, if it is true, then so what, right? Like, what does this mean for the future of One Piece if Gaban and KUREHA are related? So it could be that going into the final saga, you know, the Straw Hats are in need of some crucial piece of information about the Void Century, or beforehand, or the Will of D, or Joy Boy, or any of all of that mystery stuff that has been built up in the world. And it could be that the person that they need to go to get the answer for that is none other than KUREHA. They might have this question, it might come up on Elbaph, and they'll be like, "Oh, SCOBBER GABAN, you're an old dude." And he'd be like, "Well, rude, but true, but fair." And they'd be like, "Hey, we got this question about the Will of D, or there's something like in the O'Hara Library that we found that needs answering." And then Gaban would be like, "Hey, I don't know the exact answer to this, but I'll tell you who does know, my mum." And as everyone in Elbaph knows, there is nothing scarier than a mother. So that could be a chance for KUREHA to be like reintroduced in the final saga as a key player. They've got to like track her down, find her again, and get this bit of information out of her. Or maybe she knows that they're gonna need it. She sees something in the paper, and she'll know that they need that information. Maybe she'll try and like get a message to Chopper somehow. Oh, there's another connection. There's another connection as well. So currently down in the underworld on Elbaph, who should be paired up right now but SCOBBER GABAN and Chopper. Scopper and Chopper. Ah! And Oda often pairs up characters for very specific reasons that are like thematic or relevant to their character. So it could be that it is no coincidence that Chopper and Gaban are paired up right now. Maybe even while Chopper is tending to Gaban's wounds, this is gonna come up. Gaban's gonna be like, this reminds me of when I was training as a lad, and you know who dressed my wounds there? And Chopper would be like, no, why would I know that? And he'd be like, it was my mum, KUREHA. And Chopper would be like, what? That's my mum too! So there you go, that is another connection that sort of ties all of those characters in together and could point towards this theory coming true. Other than that, so that's probably like the main thing I could think of, like if this theory is true, then like why? What's the point of it? So it would bring KUREHA into the final war. I have been wondering like who the key players in the final war are gonna be, like how many groups from previous arcs are going to return and all of that, but I feel like that's a topic for an entirely different video. For now, I hope I've broken down the Dr. KUREHA, SCOBBER Gaban theory, that those two are related, and laid out all of the key points for it. As I said at the beginning, I don't know if this theory is true. This isn't a theory that I came up with, but it is one that I do quite like. Similar to the time dilation theory, I don't know if it's true, I didn't come up with it, but I do enjoy it. It could go either way, but for both of them, I'd be quite happy if it came true. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Is SCOBBER Gaban related to Dr. KUREHA? How are they related? Are they brother and sister? Are they mother and son? And which of the various pieces of evidence do you find most compelling in this theory? Whatever you think, pop it below, let me know. Alternatively, if you think the theory is like hogwash and nonsense, then put that down there too. Let me know what you think are any points against this theory. But alright, that's it from me today, so thank you all so much for watching this video. Do remember to like and subscribe if you have not already. Until next time, I'll see you around.